at this. Love the color grading here. Okay, so the alien presence is being set up really early on. Oh! Oh, is this the episode? It must be. I mean, there's only... Yes, it is! The Straw Hat.
Yet in his lifetime, he was a commercial designer.
He's gonna like him. He's got a bow tie.
Nice bow tie. That's cool.
Yours is very...
Oh, thank you.
Love it.
Telling them stuff.
Orangey light, chairs and tables outside.
Yeah, yeah. That's the one.
Like this.
Cafe Terrace.
Or indeed like that.
Oh.
Good painting, though, eh?
Come on.
Go on then. Bring him out.
That's not a bad deal.
Wouldn't be a bad deal if the painting were any good.
There he is.
Hang that up on my walls, it'll scare the customers half to death.
2, no one ever buys any of my paintings.
Whoa.
Or will be laughed out of town.
Absolutely one of my favorites.
One of my favorite whats? You've never seen my work before.
Oh, yes.
Scottish accent?
Come on, we better get you home.
Where are you staying tonight?
Oh, you're very kind.
There it is, the Straw Hat.
Dark night, very starry.
Not much. I live on my own. You should be okay for one night.
Simple bedroom, of course.
Night. That one's wet.
What?
Go on, show us. Oh, there it is, the bedroom. I just got goosebumps.
Wow. I mean, really.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's a mess. I'll have a proper clear out. I really must. Coffee, anyone?
Not for me, actually.
But it seems to me there's so much more to the world than the average eye is allowed to see. I believe if you look hard, there are more wonders in this universe than you could ever have dreamed of.
Spot on.
You don't have to tell me.
Yeah. Run! Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Amy, get back. He's having some kind of fit.
No.
We'll try to calm him down.
Yeah. Oh. Kind of looks like a parrot? Claws?
Not that far!
Pretty fast. See you around.
You goof. I love him. A bit of research. Plug it into the system.
Good.
Whoa!
You're working.
Jump scare. Who's gonna pop up? Go on then.
You scared the living daylights out of me.
Simple bedroom.
Wakey, wakey, rise and shine.
I thought I'd brighten things up to thank you for saving me last night.
Sunflowers?
Ah.
I thought you might like, possibly to perhaps paint them or something. Maybe a thought.
I'll get my things.
In your own time. Then I promise you we'll be out for your hair by this time tomorrow.
Oh no, he's having a...
Vincent, can I help?
And when you leave, and everyone always leaves, I will be left once more with an empty heart and no hope.
My experience is that there is, surprisingly always hope.
Then your experience is incomplete. I know how it will end. If it will not end well.
Come on. Come out. Come on. Let's go outside.
Out! Get out! What are you doing here? What are you doing here?
Very well. I'll leave. I'll leave you.
Wow, yeah. Straw hat
I'm
on.
ready. Let's go. Sometimes these moods torture me for weeks, for months, but I'm good now. If Amy Pond can soldier on, then so can Vincent van Gogh.
I'm not soldiering on. I'm fine.
Oh, Amy, I hear the song of your sadness.
Huh.
You've lost someone, I think. It's all right. I understand.
I'm not sure I do.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Go on then. Jump in.
I'm not sure about mad either. It seems to me depression is a very complex.
I'm working.
Well, yes.
And Picasso, what a ghastly old goat. But
Doctor, hush.
I kept telling him,
concentrate. Is this how time normally passes? Really slowly.
Yeah.
In the right order.
Now he's gonna feel kind of sorry for it, right?
He wasn't without mercy at all. He was without sight.
I'm afraid. I'm afraid. There.
He was frightened. And he lashed out. Like humans who lash out when they're frightened.
Yeah.
Like the villagers who scream at me. We're so lucky we're still alive to see this beautiful world. Look at the sky. It's not dark and black and without character. The black is in fact deep blue. And blowing through the blueness and the blackness, the wind swirling through the air.
Yeah.
And then shining, burning, bursting through the stars. Everywhere we look, complex magic of nature blazes before our eyes.
Wow.
I've seen many things, my friend. Nothing quite as wonderful as the things you see.
I only wish I had something of real value to give you.
Oh, no,
Wow.
I could never accept such an extraordinary gift.
Very well. We have fought monsters together and we have won. On my own, I fear I may not do as well.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Got something I'd like to show you. Maybe just
Put a shirt on.
yourself up a bit first. You know, we've had quite a few chats about the possibility there might be more to life than normal people imagine. Oh.
Yes.
Well, brace yourself, Vinny.
Oh my god. Oh my god, he's gonna take him.
Like me, trying my hardest to explain.
Yeah, he's got something else to show you. Wow. Wow.
Crossing kisses, those first steps there, I can't calculate.
To Black, where do you think Van Gogh rates in the history of art?
Well, to me, Van Gogh is the finest painter of them all. Certainly the most popular great painter of all time. He transformed the pain of his tormented life into ecstatic beauty. Pain is easy to portray, but to use your passion and pain to portray the ecstasy and joy and magnificence of our world, perhaps no one ever will again.
Beautifully
To my
put.
mind, that strange, wild man who roamed the fields of Provence was not only the world's greatest artist,
Wow.
but also one of the greatest men who ever lived.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. You're welcome.
Wow. That's right. Couldn't be. Oh my god. My beard has tears in it.
This changes everything. You've turned out to be the first doctor ever actually to make a difference to my life.
I'm delighted. I won't ever forget you.
You are sure marriage is out of the question?
This time.
I mean,
I'm not really the marrying kind.
We have here the last work of Vincent van Gogh, who committed suicide at only 37. He is now acknowledged to be one of the foremost artists of all time. If you follow me now.
Good things don't always soften the bad things, but vice versa. The bad things don't necessarily spoil the good things or make them unimportant.
wow.
We definitely...
If we had got married, our kids would have had very, very red hair.
Ready.
The ultimate ginger.
The ultimate ginge.
I'm still not ginger. Wow. 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 Love that. Absolutely love that. Whoa. Yeah. So, yeah, that had quite the impact on me, as you just saw. Deeply affecting, actually. I mean, Bittersweet. I think you have to give them a lot of credit for that episode. A lot of credit for that episode and the subject matter that's being explored. And, you know, given the fact that the demographics of the show cover quite a bit, right? Children as well, I think you do have to give them a lot of credit for how they handled this episode. I thought it was tastefully done, tactfully executed, because the subject matter at the center of it all is certainly quite complicated. It's a delicate matter. I mean, of course, you see Amy is quite sad, quite heartbroken, you know, to find out that ultimately, you know, he still ends up going down the same path. You know, I mean, the fact that it goes down like that, I mean, first of all, I think it would have been quite insensitive to, you know, to even touch a potential change of trajectory, right? For a figure this massive to our own history, right? So, you know, of course, they don't even think of that, right? That's why, you know, that's why I said this was tactfully executed. The thing is, they could have ended off after Amy and the doctor kind of drop him off back in his own time period, right? After having that incredible experience of knowing that all that pain was not meaningless, that, you know, that there is an appreciation and understanding for his work that comes from, you know, a lot of pain. Yet that happy moment, that moment of clarity almost, you know, that's not the ending off point for this episode. And I think it was important that it wasn't. You know, instead they do have a follow-up scene to show us that, you know, this issue, it's a complicated one, right? It's not something that could just be solved just like that or understood and, you know, unlocked or, you know, taken care of just like that. You know, thankfully there was none of that, oh, I can fix him angle to this, right? Because you can't. You just cannot take that angle. And of course they didn't take that angle. So yeah, it was important that the writing in this wasn't shy, right? About kind of facing the realities of mental illness. And I do think it's quite an important episode, again, given the demographic of this show, right? And, you know, I mentioned the demographics of this show and the fact that, of course, a lot of children are expected to be watching this. So, you know, in that sense, some of it had to be a bit spoon-fed, right? And I'm speaking of that one scene, Vincent kind of realizing that this monster, again, the monster being this allegory or this metaphor for, you know, mental illness and depression. But, you know, beyond that, beyond, you know, the monster kind of being this metaphor, I think the actual monster figure, the being, also kind of doubles as a depressed being or a depiction of a depressed being, you know, in the sense that Vincent kind of connected at that moment, right? And he had a lot of sorrow in that moment, didn't he? Again, he understood the pain and that moment at the end there, you know, of it being afraid, that notion of being immediately misjudged, right? Or not being seen or not being understood. And, you know, that was one of the themes that was kind of playing out in this episode, right? That he was disastrously misunderstood. Vincent, that is. And, you know, I must admit, earlier in the episode, the first quarter, perhaps, you know, in my head, I really was thinking maybe this was the one episode that they didn't really need a monster figure, right? That they didn't really need to shoehorn yet another alien presence into this. But, you know, you see by the end of it, yeah, you know, there's certainly a reason behind it all. That there is certainly a meaning to it all. But even so, you know, if I was to bring up a few cons, essentially, I'd say maybe, you know, the monster itself or maybe some of the plot points are a bit clunky, but, you know, that's just minor nitpicks, right? Because there's so much in this episode that is just phenomenal. That is just so incredible, so memorable, so affecting, deeply affecting, that those things don't even really matter, right? In that sense, there's just so much other incredible stuff that's on offer throughout this episode. And you've got to say, the actor who played Vincent, I thought he did a fantastic job. He really did. I mean, you know, that final scene, him in the museum, that is, wow. wow, it's an incredible scene. It's got to be one of the best scenes of the entire show. Yeah, that is just you don't get to see those types of moments a lot. Something that can move you so deeply, right? Incredible moment, it really was. And that whole stretch had me quite emotional, as you saw. I mean, at one point I could feel the tears in my beard, right? Because it just kept streaming right into my beard, and like I feel like I'll have to apologize now, but I feel like there was a lot of snot, and I didn't have a tissue on hand, so I'm kind of trying to get rid of it, because it's better to kind of get rid of it, even if it might look a bit nasty, to rather let it kind of leak into your mustache. So I must apologize for that, but that was the episode, right? It was that type of episode, and I loved how he's appreciating all the other art, and this is before he even knew that Amy and the doctor are about to show him his own incredible art, right? That's still being appreciated to this day, or that's being appreciated even more so than he could ever imagine, right? Because unfortunately, that's the bittersweet nature of it all, right? That he died a failure, essentially, as they put it, a commercial disaster, as they put it. But I know it sounds harsh, of course, but yeah, he died a failure, thinking he's a failure. So for that reason, it hits so deeply, to put this kind of thing on screen. It's again, it's deeply affecting. I feel like I'm getting choked up again just thinking back to it. And like I mentioned in the beginning, I've heard of this episode, right? I've heard of this episode, the title specifically. But yeah, the things that followed, especially, leading up to that conclusion, wow, that floored me. That floored me. I had no idea about that aspect of it. And I feel like this type of episode, a character study, if done right, as it was in this episode, I think, or in my opinion at least, I mean, there's only so much you could cover about the man, the myth, the legend that is, the icon that is Vincent. But I thought, even in this 45-minute episode, perhaps I thought it served an educational purpose as well. I'm sure so many didn't know much about Vincent before this, right? I only really have an average person's understanding, right? I know plenty of his original works. Many of them are iconic. They make a lot of appearances in film, television, right? So I'd say my understanding is of an average person, maybe a bit above, because I have done some reading on the man, but nothing beyond that. But even I have the urge to kind of take a deep dive now. But just imagine how many people must have looked him up after this. How many people must have taken an interest in this iconic figure after this, right? I've been doing this for a few years now, Doctor Who. I know there's a bit of a divide, some people don't like Moffat. Some people have their own doctor, and they, I've seen the wars in my comment section, some of the back and forth arguments that kind of happen, or debates that happen. But I feel like everyone, even if you don't like Moffat, even if you don't like Kieran Gillen's Amy Pond, or Matt Smith's Doctor, who I thought was incredible in this episode. I'll get into that in a bit. I think even if you don't really like any of those, if you're not a fan of any of those, I think pretty much all Doctor Who fans can appreciate at least parts of this story, right? I think it's got to be universal. And speaking of that final scene, Karen Gillan or Amy Pond's sadness at finding out that things didn't really change. It wasn't that she was upset about there being no more art. She was upset that since there is no more art, that means that things didn't change, right? The change she thought they could make. And again, it kind of goes back into it being such a complicated issue that it cannot be solved even by something that incredible, right? Him traveling in time and getting to see just how incredible, or how incredibly received his art ends up being, still really wasn't able to change the trajectory as Amy had hoped, right? But that final moment, the painting that's kind of dedicated to Amy, essentially, through that you see there is a bit of light, right? There is a bit of light that Vincent felt that even though he had a really tough time, a really tough life, for a brief moment, perhaps for a moment in time, they were able to kind of shine a light in his life, right? As depicted in that final scene, that painting that's kind of dedicated to Amy. And speaking of Matt Smith, and the doctor. Yeah, wow. You know, I adore his performance in this episode. I adore Matt Smith as the doctor. I mean, that's you know, that's so clear cut at this point. You know, those moments of him kind of having this knowing sadness and smile, right? It's present at the end because he knows Amy's about to have a bit of a heartbreaking moment, or a heartbreak moment now, because he knows, right? He knows. But you know, he tends to do that, and it's just so affecting, right? It might be a small thing, but anytime, you know, the camera kind of pans to him and he's in that moment, you know, feeling like that, you know, this all-knowing bittersweet smile and sadness that emanates, you know. And I've got to say, I really appreciated the doctor's approach to all of this, to Vincent. You know, if he saw, you know, he read the situation, and if he saw that he needs some space, he needs his time, he needs to be by himself, he gave it to him. You know, he didn't overstep any lines or boundaries. He understood that it's a delicate matter, right? He was quite respectful. Yes, there's some fun moments, but you know, I feel like this episode didn't really turn it into something goofy, right? Even if there are some moments of levity kind of throughout the episode. And you see that attitude and approach on display in that one scene, right? And I'm speaking of the doctor's approach again towards Vincent. You know, one moment, Vincent's excited about, you know, going to the church and painting the church and being in the company of these wonderful strangers that seem to actually understand him, to then having a tsunami of crippling depression kind of engulf him, right? At a split moment, at a moment's notice, after, you know, kind of realizing, you know, by this time tomorrow, these strangers are going to just kind of disappear from his life, right? And he has to go back to his own life, right? Go back to people that have no understanding of him, right? That are quick to judge him. Again, like I mentioned, disastrously misjudge him. And you see it kind of kicks in, right? The doctor kind of backs off. He's like, you know, okay, that's fine. You know, I'll leave you to it. You know, he realizes he needs to give him his space. And you see that even the idea and the notion of being here is a bit unsettling for the doctor, right? He is a little bit rattled about this all, you know, about the possibilities of this all, right, being here. And, you know, speaking of the visual side of things, of course, in an episode like this, you certainly have to. You know, first of all, I thought the photography is top-notch once again, and I loved how the art is utilized here, right, for the set design. Some incredible moments here because of that possibility. You see some iconic places like the cafe, his bedroom, and, you know, I feel like it was noticeable that even in the actual shot, right, in the staging of the shot, or, you know, in the set design, it felt like the perspective was a bit off, right, to mimic the perspective of the actual painting. So, you know, a lot of attention to detail I felt in this episode. Though I noticed that his ear was intact. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think by this time he had chopped off part of his ear, right? The earlobe, I think. But, you know, that's just a thing I'm mentioning in passing. It doesn't break or make anything. You could only do so much, right? And of course, near the conclusion of the episode, that incredible moment, incredible animation of the starry sky, right? And again, you know, I thought that was a beautiful depiction of the man himself, you know, how he sees things. Yeah, it's a beautiful moment. It's a stunning moment, really. Really impressive animation, actually. And then, of course, some of the other elements, the ongoing elements of this series 5, you see that, you know, the doctor does kind of feel a bit of guilt, right? He does, and Amy notices some of his attitude, especially in the beginning of the episode, that he's a bit uneasy about how things kind of go down. You know, Rory, right? Amy has no recollection of Rory, though, again, the man himself, Vincent, can kind of pick up on that, this sadness, this internal sadness that Amy herself isn't really able to explain either, right? But he picks up on it, again, kind of playing into the whole notion of this man, this special man, being able to perceive things a bit differently than most humans, right? You see the doctor kind of gets a little bit on edge, right? He gets a little bit concerned as Vincent kind of picks up on this, but Amy doesn't really know. Though the doctor kind of had a slip-up moment, didn't he? He mentions Rory in passing by accident, right? He was trying to say Vincent and Amy, but he said Rory and Amy. And I love that notion of the Doctor, you know, kind of being so bored by the actual progression of time, right? The normal progression of time, and the really, really, you know, slow pace of it all. And again, it's understandable, right? Given how he experiences time, or has been experiencing time for these hundreds of years, essentially, right? And maybe some of his own, you know, ADHD tendencies are kind of slipping through as well, right? He's not kind of able to sit still. He needs to kind of always be on the go, on the move, right? Fill that space. But yeah, you know, it's a fantastic episode. I mean, easily, you know, one of my favorites of this season. I mean, that's a given at this point. I'd say 11th Hour, Amy's Choice, and this one are the three that immediately stand out to me, right? And I really enjoyed the two-parter, the River Song two-parter as well. So, you know, I've got to say, this is quite the palate cleanser after the two-parter I just had, right? Not the strongest episodes, but to have this after those episodes, wow. I mean, it's quite the substantial jump in quality, isn't it? And also in that sense, it's an incredible standalone episode that you could show to anyone. You know, I love that this show has those types of episodes. It's got many of those episodes, right? But yeah, I think that's about it for that one. That really was so fantastic, right? I mean, as you saw, I thoroughly enjoyed that. It had quite an impact on me. So if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. You know, if you're interested in full length for the episode, or perhaps even early access to the next episode right now, consider checking out the Patreon page. If you're interested, the link is in the description, in the pinned comment. So yeah, consider checking that out. But thank you once again for joining me for this fantastic episode. You know, it's an episode that I'm certainly going to check out really soon again, for sure. But, you know, thank you for your time, and I hope to see you again soon for the next one. I mean, this is quite the episode, so let's see the episode that kind of follows up. You know, I hope to see you there nonetheless. So until then, take it easy.